What's next on the list, Brendan?
I think I'm done. I think it's your turn, man. So like, what have you been looking into?
Cool. So I haven't been working on meat as you have. I was more focused on the plant side of things. And I'm going to focus on vertical farming. For everyone who hears it for the first time, it comes in a few different forms, but the basic idea of it that the amount of land it takes to produce like vegetables like salad, spinach, kale, and things like that is enormous. So people started stacking them upwards and planting them basically in warehouses, in controlled environments, providing the sunlight with artificial lights, and basically increase the yield that they have from vegetables. So that's the basic idea. Let's try to touch on a few points that you also mentioned earlier, which are the problems with how regular farming is done so far. First of all, it takes a lot of space, and if you've ever been on a farm, you know that sometimes you can't see the end of it, and then the amount of time it takes to produce the vegetables, it's also really long. It's very seasonal, so every plant has a specific time when it's grown because it depends on the influence of nature. And speaking of influence of nature, it can always happen that you have a storm or hailstorm or flood or drought or whatever nature throws at you. You're kind of at the mercy of that.
Yeah,
And
we had that kind of situation a couple of years ago with that very hot summer. Was it last year? Year
what was
before?
it, 26
Who
degrees?
knows? Who? Well, I can't remember exactly, but like, who
Sorry,
knows with the
that
pandemic?
was a joke. Sorry.
Oh, I apologize. Not one I got. Unfortunately, we're having a great time with jokes today. Um, but yeah, a couple of years ago, like there were Ireland-based crisp companies like O'Donnell's. Is it O'Donnell's Crisps? I remember they were on the radio and they were crying foul because the weather was so dry that they were not going to be able to have enough potatoes to fill their quota for crisps, to
Mm-hmm.
make enough crisps for the market, which was just mad. Um, and that's exactly what you're talking about, the volatility of farming year on year. It's entirely based on, obviously, it's entirely based on the weather. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is such a simple solution. Take it indoors,
Yeah.
stack it up.
Yeah. It's very slick actually. And especially when you see videos of it online, it looks very futuristic. It looks very like somebody went to 2300 and like, that's obvious how people should do farms. Like, why haven't we thought about it earlier? And I'll address why we haven't done it in the last, let's say, 20 years. But some of the other problems that we have with standard farming is the CO2 emissions. So when you plant the plants, you obviously have to use large machinery to take care of them, to take care of the earth, then put pesticides on, then farm it, then ship it. And all of that, each part of that process produces a huge amount of CO2. Second thing that I just mentioned is pesticides. So since the vegetables are out in the open, they're subject to also a lot of not just bacteria, but also insects that kind of destroy your crop, go there and either spread diseases or eat half of your crop, birds flying over and eating half of your corn or tomatoes or whatever you're
Or
planting.
contaminating it.
Sorry?
Or contaminating it with their
Or
droppings.
contaminate, yeah. Birds sometimes carry diseases, sometimes insects, like you can't predict that stuff. So farmers usually are required to use a lot of pesticides. So to prevent a bird or insect spreadable disease, you would use a lot of chemicals to kind of create a safe environment for consumers, which is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Because then if you put so much chemicals on a plant, the plants basically absorb everything that they come in contact with. So if you put chemicals on them, they'll unfortunately take in some chemicals as well. So the things that we're eating on a regular basis is not super ultra healthy. So you have smaller gardens that are completely bio and completely GMO free and no pesticides, but they can't produce that much yield in that much quantity. So people started doing this indoor farming first. first in houses, just you plant some chili peppers in your house and it works, right? But then people started taking it more inside. And there was also the concern of soil degradation, because when you use so many pesticides and when you farm year after year on the same place, you basically exhaust the earth of all the nutrients that it has on the surface level, because most plants that we eat, they don't have roots that go like 20 meters deep, right? They're like 10 centimeters or half a meter, so it's not very large. So after a few years, you basically exhaust the earth out of nutrients. And then there's this really cool thing that farmers do, not all of them of course, but it's called cyclical farming, where you have like 4 spots on farms, and then on 3 of them you plant plants each year, and then you leave one for 1 year to rest, and then you switch the 3, and then another one rests for the next year, and then the 3rd year you switch it again, and in the 4th you basically complete the cycle and leave always one resting, and you repeat that. So the earth has enough time to get all the nutrients back from the rain, from the manure, and from basically the plants dying there. So that's the most natural process of doing it.
And so they would graze animals on these resting fields, would they?
Yeah, they sometimes bring cows there or sheep. Sometimes they don't do anything with the land. They just like cut the grass, so the grass disintegrates and kind of the field fuels itself. But yeah, most of the time they would use animals for that. That's the cyclical way, but it's still not as efficient as you'll hear now from the vertical farming industry.
Because you're still using 4 fields, which are 4 enormous areas of land.
Yeah, and you're not using one, so it's like a lot of capacity wasted. And then people came up with a brilliant idea, like, why are we going horizontally? Why don't we just go vertically? And they started stacking up plants on top of each other.
But doesn't the same problem apply there? I mean, do you exhaust the soil in your vertical stack?
No, because in most of these vertical farms, they're not using soil. Boom.
It's hydroponic.
It is, and it's self-explanatory. I actually shout out to Marek, the friend of ours who was kind of strongly argumenting the concept of hydroponics, and I'll address it a little bit later. But basically, what people started doing with vertical farms is that I'll divide this into like a few categories. First one would be water that we mentioned earlier. Light would be the second one, and automation would kind of be the third one. So first of all, you don't waste a lot of space. You have everything indoors. One of the main benefits is that you're literally proofing your farms from all the bacteria, all the birds, all the insects, and you don't have to use pesticides because of it. So just because you're indoors, you're shielded from all the negative side effects. Plus, there's no hailstorm, there's no floods, there's no anything that can destroy your plants. There's no strong winds or extreme heat. So you basically have
like the meat culture. It's a controlled environment.
Exactly. The controlled environment is very important here, because not only can you don't have to use pesticides. Basically, the plants that are grown in vertical plants are so clean because they don't have any soil or dust on them that you don't even have to wash them. People literally eat them off the farms because it's super healthy. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.